back like we never left. I'm Stef from Double Move Sports. Welcome back to the channel. We are here again with running back start sits for week 4 of the fantasy football of the NFL season. Get excited. A loaded slate coming up. Prime matchups. So excited for Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, and week 3 was absolutely crazy. Keep rocking with us here on the channel. A like and a sub. Always appreciated if y'all like what we do. And as we go through these starts and sits, if there's maybe 2 guys that are both listed as starts, you want to know which one you need to plug into your lineup, you want to get some other opinions from like-minded fantasy gamers, hit that Discord link down below. It is a free channel to join. Got over 200 people in that Discord channel. Alex and I are in there all the time. And shout out to Alex right now. He's traveling for the week. I'm holding it down. Next week, we're going to flip the script. He'll be holding it down. I'll be traveling. But I'm going to try to get in a live stream before this weekend. Keep rocking with us on the channel. Look out for that on Friday to get those start-sit questions answered. And, of course, in the Discord channel, we're doing very intimate roster breakdowns, trades, talking about Dynasty, Redraft, you name it, DFS, DraftKings, FanDuel lineups, all of it in that Discord. But let's jump in. Let's get started with the Thursday night game. The Jacksonville Jaguars go to Cincinnati. The Bengals are 7.5-point favorites at home in this game. It's a 45-point over-under, so Vegas isn't predicting a ton of points to be scored here. I think I'm actually going to take the over in this game, but regardless, you're starting Joe Mixon. He's an every-week start. He's carrying the workload there. And James Robinson, coming off a fantastic week. We've seen him continue to get used in the passing game, especially when Jacksonville gets into these garbage time or boat race game scripts. James Robinson is the pass-catching back there, and he played really, really well last week, seemingly put up like 15 fantasy points all in the fourth quarter. I think you can roll James Robinson out there again this week as a high-end RB2 against Cincinnati, and then you're not playing Carlos Hyde. Next, we got the Washington football team up against the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. The Falcons are 1-point underdogs in this game. It's a 48.5-point over-under. As gross as it is to say, I think you can start Mike Davis, and in desperation situations, in deep leagues, you can plug in Cordarrelle Patterson. Patterson's being used as mostly a pass catcher, especially with Russell Gage hurting out of the lineup. There's not a ton of options for Matt Ryan. It's Ridley, it's Pitts, and then it's Olamide Zaccheaus. I don't know. Patterson is getting the ball a decent amount, enough that we can't ignore it anymore. I think he can be okay to throw in lineups. And then Mike Davis, still the RB1, still getting most of the volume. He's not going to be a high ceiling play, but he'll give you a high enough floor that I think you can plug him in this week against the Washington football team. They just let Zach Moss run over him. I'm sure Mike Davis can put up some fantasy points, but you're certainly not feeling good about it. And then on the Washington side of the ball, Antonio Gibson, welcome back to the fantasy show. We had him as a buy low running back. I hope you listened last week and were able to go out and acquire some Gibson shares. He's a guy that you're plugging in every week into your lineup. No interest in J.D. McKissick. Just really don't know if this week is going to be a good week for him or not. The variance is extremely high. He's not getting carries on the ground, or at least enough that you would want to plug him into a fantasy lineup. Next, we got Lions, Bears, ahead in some Tigers, and that's oh my on that one. The Bears are 3.5-point favorites in this game. It's a 44.5-point over-under. Very low scoring affair projected by Vegas. Again, I think you can start David Montgomery. He is going to be a volume play, a floor play, but I think you can roll him out there against a soft Lions front and hope that this Bears offense can somehow bounce back after that brutal showing against the Cleveland Browns. Their offensive line is cause for concern, but hopefully they can bounce back against the Lions. Should be a get-right game, hopefully, for them. And then on the Lions side of the ball, I think DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams are both starts. They're essentially in a 50-50 split right now. Swift has the exceptional talent. Williams is getting enough usage, and he's been explosive enough as a player that he's putting up fantasy points in his own right. We know the receivers in that Detroit wide receiver room aren't enough to take all the passing game usage away. Like, this is a funneled offense that's going to the running backs and to the tight end, and for that reason, you can start Swift and Williams this week. I'm expecting Williams to be in that low-end RB2 range, Swift to be at the high-end RB2 range in this game. Next, we got the Titans going up to New York to take on the Jets. It's a 46-point over-under. The Jets are 7.5-point underdogs in this game. Should be an easy win for Tennessee. The Jets are back to their brutal ways. And this one's pretty easy from a running back standpoint. You're starting Derrick Henry. You're not starting any of the Jets running backs this week. We are hopeful for Michael Carter, but until we see it play out on the field, we can't trust him in a fantasy lineup. Next, we have Browns at Vikings. Vikings are 1.5-point favorites. It's a 52.5-point over-under. So far, the highest over-under that we've looked at on this slate. And I expect this to be a fun game. As a Browns homer, I'm so excited to watch this one. You're starting Nick Chubb. You're starting Kareem Hunt. You're starting Dalvin Cook if he plays. And if he doesn't play, I think you can roll Alexander Mattison out there. Now, don't just expect for there to be a one-to-one, replace all of Dalvin Cook's production right over to Alexander Mattison. We've seen time and time again it does not work like that. But in these high-flying affairs with the check-down volume, the way that the Vikings utilize the running back in their system, Mattison is going to get enough volume that he will be fantasy relevant. And actually, I believe he has a pretty high ceiling even against a tough Browns defense. I mean, you look what Mattison just did, 26 carries against Seattle for 112 yards on the ground. Had 8 targets, caught 6 of them for another 59 yards. So had 23 fantasy points in week 3 against Seattle. No touchdown in that game. I think I am willing to plug him in there if Dalvin Cook is out. And if Dalvin Cook plays, you just have to start him. Hope that he doesn't burn you. Hope that the Vikings aren't using him as a pure decoy. Wait. Alex, I have to stop the show because I'm dumb hyped over this new sponsorship deal we got. Shout out to our guys over at Manscaped. And look, I was skeptical. But Alex, I've been a very hairy guy for a long time. I was the kid at 13 years old in middle school.
Oh, yeah.
With chest hair showing out of the polo shirt. Like, I was that dude.
I was jealous at the time.
Well, nothing to be jealous over anymore because ever since I got this lawnmower 4.0 from them, it's been clean down there to say the least.
Manscaped has the lawnmower 4.0. Not the 1, not the 2, not the 3, but the 4.0. Talk about sleepers on our show, and this has to be one of the best sleeper products out there. I was skeptical as well, and it's been an absolute game changer. Check out Manscaped. This thing is legit, and you will definitely not be disappointed by this full-body trimmer. It's incredible.
So Manscaped was nice enough to give us a 20% off discount code for the Double Move Sports viewers. You can get 20% off and free shipping with code DMS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code DMS. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Now back to the show. Next, we got the Colts going to Miami to play the Dolphins. The Dolphins are 1.5-point favorites in this game. A brutally low 43.5-point over-under. It's a Jacoby Myers revenge game. And look, as brutal as it's been over the last couple of weeks, you have to continue to start Jonathan Taylor. We saw a little bit of this last year where it took the Colts like 7 or 8 weeks for them to fully get Jonathan Taylor ramped up. It seems like they're going back to that again for some reason, but you just have to trust the talent, trust the player ability, and the Dolphins have been susceptible to the run game, so hopefully Jonathan Taylor can get right this week. He is still a guy that I'm looking to buy low, especially in dynasty formats. But it's a little worrisome seeing this in back-to-back years for JT. I don't know what Frank Reich is doing. You see this guy on the field, the way he's running, you got to feed him the ball. But anyways, Nyheim Hines, he's a desperation stream in a PPR league. You just never know what type of day he's going to have. And then you can start Myles Gaskin. Don't really want to start Malcolm Brown, even though he had that really good touchdown run in week 3, but not getting the type of volume that you can rely upon for Malcolm Brown. Next, we have Panthers at Cowboys. Cowboys are 4.5-point favorites in this game, but the 50.5-point over-under, so should be a pretty fun one. I'm expecting fantasy points to all the primary options in the passing game and the running games. I think you can start Ezekiel Elliott. You can start Tony Pollard. And, of course, you're starting Christian McCaffrey if he plays. It seems like he avoided going on the IR, so should be back within a couple weeks. But assuming he's totally out, you can start Chuba Hubbard. Don't expect Christian McCaffrey production. Expect 60% of Christian McCaffrey's production. The way they were using Chuba when he did come in to the game against the Texans on Thursday Night Football does seem to be fitting right into that Christian McCaffrey type utilization. He's getting checkdowns. He's getting a lot of targets. He's getting carries between the tackles. So Chuba should be doing it all. I am a little bit worried long-term with Royce Freeman getting worked in. Could take some of that away from a rookie running back who's still pretty raw in Chuba Hubbard, but I am willing to start Chuba against the Cowboys in what should be a high-flying matchup. Next, we have the Giants going up against the Saints. This one's easy from a running back perspective. There's no handcuffs of relevance here. You're starting Saquon Barkley. He's back. We called on the show in our Buy Low Running Backs episode last week. Hopefully, you were able to get some Saquon shares. And then, of course, Alvin Kamara, every week starter, every week stud. No questions asked on him. And the next, we have the Chiefs against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are 6-point underdogs in this game. A beautiful 55-point over-under for us fantasy players. You're starting Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He did bounce back after his fantasy stock took an absolute dip and everyone was leaving him for dead. I think a lot of people overreacted to the fumble that he had against the Ravens that kind of killed the game for the Chiefs. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still an every week starter, even though we've tapered our expectations on him. Now we're putting him in the low-end RB2 range. Talked about him in our Discord channel. If you're looking to see what type of deals you could be making either to buy CEH or sell CEH if someone in your league is not valuing him properly or overreacting to the good games or the bad games. So join that Discord channel in the link down below. It is free to join. And then on the Eagles side of the ball, we have Miles Sanders. I think you're starting him every week, especially against the Chiefs. And then Kenny Gainwell. He's getting in the 30 to 40% snap share range. You're not starting Kenny Gainwell. After last week, it's still hard to trust him. Want to see how his role continues to evolve before I plug him into a fantasy lineup. Next, we have kind of a gross game, both from the spread from Vegas, from the over-under, and also from the running backs in this game. It's the Texans up against the Bills. Bills are 16.5-point favorites. It's a 48-point over-under. I'm going to eat my words here. I think you can start Zach Moss. We were all out on him at the start of the year after the healthy scratch in week 1. After being essentially touchdown or bust in week 2 and did get the touchdown, 2 of those touchdowns. Zach Moss actually passed Singletary in week 3. So if you have a desperation situation, maybe you have Moss and Singletary on your roster for some reason, I am willing to roll out Zach Moss in a really soft matchup against the Texans. I don't feel great about it, but I will roll Moss out there and hope that he does get the touchdown, which he seems to be getting pretty consistently in a high-scoring offense. Not touching Devin Singletary. The pendulum is swinging back and forth too much for him to be a reliable fantasy option. And then the gross three-headed monster in Houston. You just can't touch Mark Ingram. You can't touch David Johnson. And you can't touch Phillip Lindsay in fantasy football right now. But next up, we got a lot of NFC West action. We have the Cardinals up against the Rams. The Rams are 6-point favorites at home. It's a 54.5-point over-under. And on the Cardinals side of the ball, I think you can plug in Chase Edmonds again. He seems to just be that high floor, 10 to 15 fantasy point every single week type of name. So you can continue to roll him out there as an RB2, maybe even a flex if you have a bunch of running backs and you don't have a high upside receiver. I'm willing to plug in Chase Edmonds. Hopefully one of these days he does get the touchdown, does have that pop week. But for now, we can't rely on that. But he is definitely a high floor play and a trustworthy option based on his production so far in 2021. And then with James Conner, you're sitting him. He had the 2-touchdown game last week. It did inflate his fantasy output, but he's nothing more than a touchdown or bust option. He hasn't passed 4 yards per carry in a game this season, so continuing to be the inefficient between the tackles grinder that he was in Pittsburgh. I'm not plugging him in to my lineup. Then on the Rams side of the ball, Sony Michel got the volume. 20 carries, 4 targets. Of course, they weren't efficient, but nobody is against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers run defense. Assuming Darrell Henderson is out, sounds like he's trending in the right direction, but they don't know if he's going to play. Might end up being a game-time decision. McVay said he is hopeful that Henderson is going to play. If Henderson's out, Sony Michel is an absolute smash start for me. He does have touchdown upside. If he's going to get 75% of snaps and 20 out of 24 carries on the ground, Sony Michel can be a guy that you plug in. If Darrell Henderson plays, I'd still sit him. I'm worried about the volume, him coming off injury where Sony Michel took that much of that volume, that 75% snap share. It does worry me a bit for Darrell Henderson. I'd like to wait a week, see how these two play when they're fully onboarded together. Is it a 50-50 split? Is it Henderson sliding back in to that 60 to 70%? We just don't know. I'd like to wait a week with Henderson, especially with him coming off injury. We will see how things go. I'm sure Henderson will come up in start-sit questions later on in the week. Make sure you join us on that live stream. That way we can give you the most up-to-the-minute information on Darrell Henderson and all these players that are questionable coming into week 4. But then staying in the NFC West, we have the Seahawks at San Francisco playing against the 49ers. The 49ers are 2.5-point favorites. Another delicious fantasy matchup, 42.5-point over-under here. You're starting Chris Carson and nobody else on the Seahawks side of the ball. And then with San Francisco, it's interesting. I think if Elijah Mitchell comes back, he can be a desperation RB2 start in your lineup. I think he will hop right back into that RB1A chair. Trey Sermon, if Mitchell's out, I am willing to roll him out there again when he becomes the de facto number 1, but I'm worried for Sermon. I mean, they were using Kyle Juszczyk over him, and look how many injuries it took for Sermon to even be the 1A. And then even then, he was touchdown reliant for him to have, 11.5 fantasy point outing. I'm only starting Sermon. I'm only considering Sermon if Mitchell is out. And if Mitchell plays, I'll put Mitchell in. Outside of that, I'm fading the rest of the guys in this backfield. But moving over to Ravens at Broncos. Broncos are 1-point favorites, the undefeated Broncos. It's a 44.5-point over-under, so Vegas does not expect a lot of points to be put up here. And it makes it kind of tough for the Ravens side of the ball to get excited about any of their pass-catching options. Right now, it is a 3-way split between Tyson Williams, Latavius Murray, Devonta Freeman. I'm sitting all 3, but if I have to start one, it is Latavius Murray. He led the team with 7 carries in week 3, but Tyson Williams, the volume is slowly slipping away from his grasp ever since Latavius Murray has been getting more and more onboarded into this offense, and we know Lamar Jackson is going to take all the carries that he needs to go out and win the game. The Ravens are really just putting the game in Lamar Jackson's hands every single week at this point. I will easily take Ravens money line in this game. The Broncos, while they are undefeated, they've played the Giants, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the New York Jets. The level of competition just hasn't been there. I expect the Broncos to lose this one and the Ravens to continue putting up numbers, even though they almost just lost to the Detroit Lions, had to hit a record-setting field goal to win that one. But nonetheless, let's move over to Steelers at Packers. Packers are 7-point favorites. It's a 45.5-point over-under. As far as the running backs go, it's pretty easy. You're starting Najee Harris. You're starting Aaron Jones. You're sitting A.J. Dillon. And there's really no other running backs of consequence for us from a fantasy perspective to worry about in this game. Next, we have one of the most overhyped matchups of the year so far. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers up against the New England Patriots. The storylines are fun. The media is going to have a heyday with this game as far as the Brady-Belichick narratives. But the Bucs should pretty easily win this one. The Patriots are 6.5-point underdogs in this game. It's a 48.5-point over-under. And for the Buccaneers, it's pretty easy. You're starting Leonard Fournette, no one else. I'm sorry, Ronald Jones. You're sitting him. 16% snap share. Absolutely brutal career trajectory for Ronald Jones in such a great situation in Tampa Bay. He's nothing more than a handcuff for Fournette right now, and even then I'm not super excited. After that, it's Giovanni Bernard. You're sitting him. And then with the Patriots, I think you can roll out Damian Harris as a deep, deep start. I'm looking for other options against a tough Buccaneers run defense, but James White is out, and he's probably going to the IR with a hip injury. That could open up some interesting things for Damian Harris in the passing game. And if it's not him, keep an eye on J.J. Taylor. He is a deep name. Don't burn a bench spot on him, but keep an eye out in deep leagues. If you're desperate, J.J. Taylor, if he has a good game, could be essentially the James White replacement on that offense. Last game on the slate here, Raiders at Chargers, a divisional matchup with two really, really good-looking teams right now. The Chargers are 3.5-point favorites, a very nice 52.5-point over-under in this one. The Chargers are giving up 170 rushing yards per game. That's number 1 in the league this year. So depending on who the Raiders RB1 is, I want to plug that guy in. Hopefully it's Josh Jacobs back healthy, depending on how practice reports go. If he seems all systems go coming into Monday night, which is sketchy, make sure you have a backup option planned in case they pull him last minute. But I am willing to roll out Josh Jacobs if he plays. Kenyon Drake, he's not the one I'm looking at here. He's a scat back at best. He's not looking efficient. He's just being used for checkdowns in the passing game. Peyton Barber is coming out with a huge game last week against the Miami Dolphins. It was an easy matchup. and he only played 57% of snaps, but he saw 23 carries for 111 yards, had a touchdown, and then saw 5 targets, while Kenyon Drake was still seeing 6 targets of his own. I'm willing to throw in Barber as a Josh Jacobs handcuff. That's kind of the way I'm playing it if I did invest in Josh Jacobs during my draft. I am willing to roll out Peyton Barber as a deep RB2. I don't want to flex him because I think you can find wide receivers, even on waiver wires, that have more upside than Peyton Barber against the Chargers. But that's the way I'm looking at it in this game. And with Austin Eckler, he's definitely a start. You aren't starting Larry Roundtree. You aren't starting Justin Jackson. Those are just pure handcuffs right now. And that's it for the running backs in week 4. As always, if you guys like what we do here on the channel, a like and a sub, always appreciated. Keeps the wind in our sails, keeps things moving forward. And of course, if you want to join the conversation with me and Alex and our whole community, hit that Discord link down below. Appreciate y'all listening and watching, and we'll see y'all next time. Peace.